There you go, boys. By royal appointment, welcome to the Final Furlong Podcast. I'm Emmet Kennedy, joined by Adam Mills and George Gorman as we take you through our leading bets for all the big races at Royal Ascot 2024, beginning with the Queen Anne Stakes, the Group 1, where Sharon has been promoted to favourite. Sylvester de Souza on board, the 11-4 favourite with Geoff Banks Bet. Factor Cheval 3-1, chasing home Paddington last year, and Big Rock in Group 1s. Big Rock is into 5s. In Spiral goes elsewhere. It's almost like they're trying to make it really hard for Kieran Schumacher this year. I don't know. Audience will go instead. A 10-1 shot, shock winner of the Lockinge. And Maljoum down to 12-1 for the Haggis team, who won this race a couple of years ago with Baid. Adam Mills, take us away. Who's going to win the Queen Anne and get us off to a winning start?
Well, let's hope it's a French horse. I think this is like the French have got a really strong hand in this race. I wasn't overly keen on Inspiral anyway, but I could see why she was at the head of the original market. Charin, he's almost become favourite by default. I'd be surprised if he goes off favourite. His record in Group 1s is 8-4-3, 8-3-2. He's had 6 goes already. Whilst I think he's a slightly better horse this year, and this maybe isn't the greatest Group 1, I start to think if you had this many goes, you're starting to question that a little bit. I think the market's worth taking on. The French won this before. Solo won it in 2015. And there are 3 really good French horses. And I say 3 because the one I really fancy is being overlooked. Big Rock, I can see the case of Big Rock, but there's no hiding the fact that it was a really poor run in the Lockinge. And I do not understand this logic. Something has obviously happened behind the scenes to make these horses be moved to Maurizio Garnieri. Now, I don't know what it is. I'm not in the know. Christopher Head's a brilliant trainer. I'm not saying Maurizio Garnieri is a bad trainer, but I just don't understand the logic. And the horses have yet to show that there's a benefit to it. If we look at 2024, Christopher Head's had 18 winners from 86 runners. Garnieri had 8 from 113 in France. Just the stable form of worrying me. And that run in the Lockinge stunk. And I'd been backing Big Rock pretty consistently for a month leading up to it, thinking that was the way, and it just didn't run out. So I'm quite happy to roll Big Rock out. Factor Cheval is definitely the solid horse. He'll be in the first 3. Always runs his race. Travels really well. Yes, the win in Dubai, we can probably say picked up the pieces a little bit. The likes of Luxembourg, Nashwa, Joe Juice, there's a few flopped in that. But he has also bumped into some really good horses in the last year. He bumped into Paddington at Goodwood. He's come behind Sauternes. He's come behind Big Rock when that horse was on form. So he's solid. But there's one in here who's just a ridiculous price, and that's Delay for Francis-Henri Graffard. Mickey Barcelona has been booked to ride, so I think we're going to get a run. I did take a bit of the 20s. I couldn't resist it. I've got to take a little bit of the 20s each way. Graffard and the Arga card. I mean, this horse really progressed on the all-weather over the winter quite quietly. And I was thinking, this is a nice horse. And a good mate of mine, Jordan Hopkins, who's a brilliant French judge, he also agreed that this is one to maybe have a look at. And then suddenly the form's just taken off. Little go on the turf, see how it went. But the run in the Prix d'Ispahan is the one for me. I think this form is unbelievably strong, that there's no way Delay should be 20-1. The Prix d'Ispahan, perhaps it was because it was on a quiet day and no one really saw it. But, I mean, it was won by Makusi de Sevigny, who's Andre Fabre's main hope for the Arc de Triomphe. Horizon Door was second as a Prix Dollar winner. Got a bit of a chance later on the really good horse. Hayazark was third. She's a Prix Gannet winner. Delay was fourth in that, only beaten a length. Fifth was Blue Rose Sen, who's a Prix de Diane winner. And the French 2,000 Guineas winner from last year was Mohamed Yassanafi, who was sixth. It was a good time. The race was really competitive. Most of them got a clean run. This is rock solid form. Why on earth is this horse 20-1? I think this is a pretty poor Queen Anne. If you think of some of the Queen Anne winners of the past, this is nowhere near that level. I think Delay is capable of running to a mark of around 120. And if the horse does that, it's going to be in the first 3. And I can't understand why it's 20-1. So that's my bet. Hopefully we're off to a good start.
Well, I don't know if you saw George and I both celebrating that you're putting this horse up, because obviously it's great minds think alike. I have to say, Rixie put this horse up on TalkSport 2 earlier on this afternoon for Royal Ascot, and I was doing a punch into the air with delight then as well. Because for this race last year, I was going for the Aga Khan's Edervian. Is that the name of the horse? I can't. Yeah, in and around that as my camera decides to go absolutely bonkers here. Technical difficulties here on the Final Furlong Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Stay with us. They ended up not running the horse, which was really frustrating to me. So I didn't pull the trigger anti-post this time around because I was afraid that this fellow wouldn't turn up. But obviously, jockey booking has been confirmed. There's such a strong pace in this race as well. He's going to have that to his advantage too. I'm with you here. I think this is a really, really exciting horse. And George, you were punching the air with delight too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is one or two I sort of wanted to give a mention. Let's say he's not far off them on ratings. He's shown steady improvement in his RPRs in 9 out of his 10 career runs. Like he's improved. His only backward step was his first run back off 400-day break, and even then on RPRs it was only a backward step of £2. While like the third and the fourth might not read as well as the string of first, the Group 2 at St. Cloud's first try in Group Company, beat a length and a quarter. Then obviously his first try in Group 1 the last day was beating a length in fourth. Again, just like Adam, it's worth mentioning, he still beat Blue Rose Sen that day, proper horse. Most of his form's on soft ground, but he is 3 out of 4 on the all-weather. So I'd say the fact that he's been mostly kept to soft ground is more to do with the 400-day break off the track than anything, especially being by Siuni. He's probably quite a big, heavy horse. Maybe if it turned up on the quick side, you might worry about. So I think they'll let him take his chance. This is obviously his day, but might just be something that would worry if it showed up real quick, but I can't imagine they'll let it. Yeah, he's one that I really fancy, and I can't really work out how to play it. Maybe if it did show up a bit quick, I'd play Audience instead. He's a safe bet. It's good ground seed to suit, but he's also finished.
Sorry, George. Did you just say Audience?
Audience, yeah.
Have you lost your mind?
No.
Is there? How many whiskeys have you had today?
0 so far, anyway.
So far.
The night is young.
There's a bottle back there. But
the stream is young.
I'll save a whiskey for when they get beat. But look, I thought he finished close in a Group 2 event on soft ground at Doncaster, so he might be a bit less ground dependent than some of these others. Like Big Rock, all of his graded wins, they've come on good soft and heavy. And same with and then the other way, if it turned up a bit quick, I think Delaye, you just might feel his feet a bit. I really do like Delaye. I would worry if it showed up good to firm. There's not masses of rain around Ascot at the moment. Like I said, they'll probably water it to good. So I'm just saying, if it turned up quick, I might revert to Audience.
Has anybody got Tony Calvin's number for an intense weather forecast?
No. But you got to remember, while he was a shock winner of Velokinge, that was his first try at a mile, and he's beat Sharon in Spiral and Big Rock. Possible that he's open to further improvement at the trip now that he settles well enough to tackle it. If you actually look at since the introduction of a hood, he's improved 21 pounds. There is a chance that he continues to improve, especially now that he stays well enough to go this trip, settles well enough to go this trip. That'd just be my if and or. I've done that with most of these races. We don't know quite what the ground's going to be yet, so I sort of have a quick ground option and a soft ground option. But I'm dying to back Delaye, so I'm hoping for just good or softer, really.
Okay, we're all with Delaye, so at this point. The French horse for the Aga Khan. That's probably just the easiest way to do it.
I would just add very quickly, I don't have the same worries about the ground. I might be wrong. George is probably a better judge of the breeding side, but his first 2 races, he won both of them at St. Cloud and Paris Longchamp. Just had a look. The penetrometer reading was 3.3 and 3.4. Now, although the French would describe that as good to soft, we'd have that closer as good to firm in places if it was a turf tracks reading. So I think we'll get away with it on the ground. But the other thing that is I forgot to mention with him is he's an Aga Khan gelding. He's a 5-year-old, and he's got 3 entries in the UK in the next 8 weeks. He's in the Queen Anne, he's in the Eclipse, and he's in the Sussex Stakes. And I don't think those other 2 entries would be made unless they thought he was going to go close in the first one.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But if you fancy him, potentially worth having a small bet on one of the other 2. He's 33 to 1. Yeah. whether mile two's going to suit. It's one of them. If you fancy him for this, you've almost got to have a small each way bet on him for one loads at a big price.
But I mean, purely from a numbers point of view, his price doesn't make any sense. He's got a Racing Post rating of an official rating of 116. If Big Rock turns up as the Big Rock he was last year in the QE2, then everyone's playing for a place. But I don't know if he's still that horse. And if he is still that horse, why was he moved trainers and why have you changed jockey? None of those things would inspire confidence. I like Christophe Toumion a lot. He's one of my favorite jockeys in the business, actually. But no, you have to skip him for the moment. If you want to back him, 11-2, I think, is the price you're currently getting with Geoff Banks Bet, and 5-1, in fact, and go and knock yourself out. But he is, with everything else, Factor Cheval and Audience are officially rated 120. He's on 116. He's got an RPR of 127. Audience is 135. Like, he doesn't have to improve that much in order to be right there at the finish. And most firms have cut him to 16s. Geoff Banks will still give you 20s. For now, I would act quickly because I think this is going to go. I think it's going to go very, very fast. We're both with Dolawi for the first race, the opening race of Royal Ascot 2024, the Queen Anne. To the third race on the card, we'll talk about some of the 2-year-old races a little bit later on. We've already heard from Aiden O'Brien, and we've got Archie Brooks giving us his expert analysis for the juveniles as well. So make sure you're watching out for that episode of the Final Furlong Podcast right here on YouTube and all podcast apps. But Big Evs heads the betting for the King Charles III Stakes. 3-1 is the current price. Regional, a 9-2 shot. Asafora, who I was very underwhelmed by on her debut in the UK, a 7-1 shot. And Believing, who apparently is going to go for both of the Royal Ascot races, the big sprints over the week. She is a 10-1 shot after her win last week. George, let's start with you this time. Who do you like in the King Charles III?
I'll be going with Regional here. He tops them on ratings, and you can't discount him on the basis of his current defeat. He's 2 from 7 on the back of breaks of 50 days or more. And that probably makes the performance even more encouraging because he still saw off 10 decent sprinters there. And Mick Barr, he was only able to beat him under Ride of the Season contender from Jamie Spencer. If he takes a step forward from that, Big Ed will have to improve to beat him, which I know 3-year-old, of course, could well do. And I think while most of Regional's forms over 6 furlongs, the ability to stay further probably stands to you a bit at Ascot, especially if there's lots of runners. Like, they go quite hard. It wouldn't worry me too much that this is over 5. And off the back of our last podcast, I mentioned that I'd probably fancy Kurdos to run a big race again next time. To just give him a quick mention. I think people were quick to write off the Temple Stakes win, but it's more than possible the horse could just finally be maturing into the horse he was meant to be. Like, he's only 4. Like Mick Barhy's also by profitable, and he ran a career best last time at 5 years old. This horse is a year younger. Clive Cox, no stranger to late maturing sprinters, and if you take the Haydock race at face value, he has very little to find to challenge the market principles, and it's just probably a little bit too big of a price still. Like, if you got anything, like, I think he probably is nearly each way value at that price. Like, I wouldn't want him much shorter. I think I want a double figure price on him, but my main player would be Regional.
Okay. Adam, for you?
It wouldn't be the strongest opinion on this race, but I agree with George. I think Big Evs is going to need to improve, and I think he needs to improve quite a bit to win this. I love Big Evs. He's really solid, but this is a massive ask for a 3-year-old, and I just think there are some battle-hardened sprinters in here on this straight course that just might do him. I think Big Evs will continue to drift, and I wouldn't surprise me if him and Regional come pretty close. Can definitely see the case for Regional. The one I came down of as kind of a solid each way, which with Ryan Moore booked is always a bit wishy, but we'll have a go, which is Twilight Calls. He's got a really good record in this race. He was second to Nature Strip in 2022. He was 4th last year behind Bradsell and Highland Princess. And I just really like the way he shaped at Newmarket at the start of May. He's shaped like a horse who was about 80% fit and had a long-term target in mind. Ran on nicely at the finish. On the official ratings, he's only got a mark of 106, so he's got a lot to find, but he has consistently run well in this race. And I think the 5 furlong sprint course at Ascot, the height of summer, is just, that's his time. That's when he seems to put in his best effort of the season. And I thought he was too big at 10-1. I'd be I'm going to put him up each way because he might bump into something. But I will say that I would not normally back Ryan Moore each way. But in this case, I will do, particularly if there's 4 places on a big field, something like that.
Which I imagine there will be. The current price by Twilight Calls is 10-1. I'm going to go for Valiant Force, who was a 150-1 winner of the Norfolk last year for a good friend, Aiden O'Hara, long shot punter, shot the lights out and then came to global fame in the racing world after that tip. But he proved that was no fluke afterwards, particularly with his run behind Big Evs in the Breeders' Cup. Big Evs is 7-2 or 4-1 with Geoff Banks. This fella's a 16-1 shot. There's only half a length behind them, between them. And I don't think the race really panned out in his favor at the Breeders' Cup. He was kept in America, didn't seem to like it, is back with Adrian Murray, and apparently he's raving about him. So Valiant Force to go back-to-back at Royal Ascot at a big price for me. It's a very open race. You're looking for something that can come off the pace because there's a bit like the Queen Anne, there's a lot of pace. There's more pace in this race. So I'd be very much with Twilight Calls as well, but my overall bet in that race is Valiant Force. We shall move on to arguably the race of the entire meeting, the St. James's Palace Stakes, the Group 1, where the 2,000 guineas winner for Godolphin, Notable Speech, takes on the Irish 2,000 guineas winner, and the horse he beat at Newmarket, Rosalind. Last year's unbeaten juvenile and a Group 1 winner for Aiden O'Brien, Henry Longfellow, who was defeated in the 2,000 guineas in France, but Aiden told us on the podcast just yesterday how badly he needed that race, and also tactically it didn't pan out properly. The French 2,000 guineas winner of that race, Metropolitan, has been supplemented for this and is a pretty big price. And then you've got Unquestionable, who's a massive price here at 50-1 still with Geoff Banks Bet, which I think is absolute madness because there's a number of these horses are going to be rerouted, including River Tiber and Mountain Bear, who are both headed to the Jersey. It sounds like Hatem is going in that direction as well. So straight away, I'm very intrigued by the 50s Unquestionable. I think he should not be that big a price. But who is your overall pick, Adam Mills?
Well, I think I don't see any reason why the Guineas form will be reversed. I've seen a few people try and make a case that the bend will help Rosalind, but I think one Notable Speech is a winner at Kempton. And that Kempton or weather track is on the inside. It's really tight. The bend helps him too. I think sometimes when you get the way that Guineas worked out with City of Troy bombing, it was seen as like a surprise result. But actually, I think when you watch it, I watched it about 3 or 4 times. I think, no, the best horse won. That's just simply what happened. The best horse won. Rosaliand's come out and franked the form, but there's no obvious reason to me why that'll be reversed. Having said that, I'm not really sure I want to be sort of ploughing in at a short price on Notable Speech, but I don't think Rosalind can beat him, so that kind of rules that out. I definitely want to forgive Henry Longfellow. That French 2,000 guineas is a classic example of jockeys who know how to ride the track and jockeys who don't. And what happened in the French Guineas meeting, particularly before everyone saw the rain coming in and that they saw the track and they assumed that the track was riding the same way it does for the ARC meeting in October. And it simply wasn't. And when you get a relatively good period of weather at Paris-Longchamp, the ground really dries out. It's a downhill run to the straight. The prominent horses can go as fast as they want because they all fill up coming down the hill and they just don't stop. Metropolitan won the French 2,000 guineas, not because he's the best horse, but because Alexis Pouchin is one of the few jockeys who understands unless this ground is bottomless, I must be in a prominent position. And Ryan Moore just simply got it wrong. He is human. He made a mistake. I know, they say, he met traffic and things, but it wouldn't have mattered. He could have had 6 legs. He still wouldn't have got out of trouble from that far back. I do want to forgive him and back him on his 2-year-old form. So he's the one really that I want to get stuck into. But I will have a little savour on Darlinghurst. Maybe it's my clouded judgment and thinking that Jerome Rainier is the second coming as a trainer, but this boy can train. He's just so good at getting these horses right to peak at the right time. And what he's also brilliant at is he brings them on slowly. Darlinghurst was nothing special in a couple of 2-year-old maidens last year. Comes back. They look at the races at Cannes-sur-Mer in January and February when everyone else is looking at the jumps. Builds up slowly. Goes to Chantilly, wins a listed. Goes to Chantilly again, wins a Group 3, beating First Look. First Look then comes out, runs an absolute cracker of a race behind Look to Vega. I think that's really strong form. And for that, why is Darlinghurst 10-1? Well, probably because no one's really heard of the horse because he hasn't turned up in the really big races. Soumillon's booked. I think Henry Longfellow has the potential to be the best 3-year-old miler around. I think he could be better than Notable Speech if Aiden gets him right. And I'll trust Aiden. I will trust Aiden. This is probably only if Henry Longfellow bombs again, it'll be different. But I think you can get him back. But I've got to have a saver on Darlinghurst. I think Darlinghurst should be 5s and he's 10s. So I've got to take a little bit.
Okay, well, that makes perfect sense. If you think a horse should be half the price they are, then obviously you're going to back them. I think Unquestionable is going to be more like a 20-1 shot on the day. So the 50s with Geoff Banks it's too big, and it's a blind bet. Do I think he can win? No, because I'm pretty sure Henry Longfellow is going to win this race. I'm very much with Adam. Notable Speech was really, really good in the 2000 Guineas, George. I think he was definitely the best horse in that race. I think the best horse in that race is City of Troy. He just didn't turn up that day for whatever bizarre reason, and we can debate that till the end of time as to why. But take nothing away from the Godolphin horse. He was mustard, and they'll probably never meet because I doubt City of Troy will ever drop back to a mile, and I doubt Notable Speech is ever coming up to 10 furlongs. He looks like an out-and-out miler. But I have a feeling the other Dubawi is really going to show what he's capable of in this race. And it was interesting being on TalkSport 2 today and having Sam Norris from William Hill report some big, heavy support for Henry Longfellow in the last 24 hours. It's Aiden O'Brien. It's Royal Ascot. They understand the value of the Royal Meeting. This fellow will be ready to go. And his 3-year-olds are most of them, improving for their first run of the season. Look what City of Troy did. Step forward, Henry Longfellow. Are you with us?
I'm not, I'm afraid.
Boo!
The Notable Speech does bring the best form. I'm not sure. A £4 ratings differential on the basis of a length and a half beating of Rosalian is quite warranted. So we call it last 2-year-old race of the season for a reason, don't we? It doesn't always work out. It sort of seems like flat season didn't start till after that. Notable Speech had already had, was it his 4th run of the season? That going into that, whereas Rosalian was making his seasonal debut. At the prices, I'm happy to take a punt on him to reverse the forms. I think they should be closer together in the betting. Like, he might not have posted a massive rating beating Hatem at the Curragh next time out, but like, you look at how it's run. He's made up so much ground and passed a really, really tough horse after he's done all that. I thought it was a much improved performance than from the Guineas. I just think he's more than capable of taking another step forward here, and he doesn't really have all that much to find with Notable Speech. I take your point certainly about Henry Longfellow. Like they're coming on a bundle for their first run. I think Rosalian can come on a bundle as well for that second race. I think he's improving all the time. There's just something about him I really like the last day. Just oozed class to me, and I'm going with my gut.
Well, in the winner's enclosure, right after the 2000 Guineas, the initial reaction from Richard Hannon was not to go to the Curragh, to come to Royal Ascot, and he straight away mentioned, I think that the bend will even the playing field, and we can get closer to him, if not turn the form around. He sounded very confident then. Then they put him in the Irish 2000 Guineas. He was obviously given a terrific ride that day. I think he's improved for that run. And you could argue that he now has that additional experience that may very well be an edge for him too. Personally, I'd be surprised if he turns the form around with Notable Speech, but I can see it. And it is worth pointing out that the Hannon team are very, very confident that they can do it. On to day 2 and the Group 1 Wales Stakes, where the betting is headed by Auguste Rodin. We have to bring in our international correspondent because he's got something very profound to say about Auguste Rodin's current form, particularly after his defeat last time out at the hands of White Birch.
If you can make God bleed, then people will cease to believe in him. And they will be blood in the water. And the sharks will come.
Well, the sharks have come because White Birch is back in the race. Inspiral has been switched from the Queen Anne to this race as well. And that can only be because people have stopped believing in the mighty Auguste Rodin. He is mortal. He bleeds. He can be beaten. Not only can he bomb out, but he can also be beaten. So does he deserve to be such a short price favorite for the Prince of Wales, Adam? He was 6-1 a week ago. Now he's 15-8 with Geoff Banks.
I don't know. Do you trust him? You've got to make a decision. If you trust him and you think he's going to run to his best, then yes, he should be favourite. But he's bombed out a few times. I just don't. I'll never get him right. I tend to lay him when he bolts up, and then I'll go and back him next time. And I thought going to Dubai was a certainty, and he ran like he'd never seen the track before, and it was just. I looked at the price and thought, well, August Rodin and White Birch are definitely at the head of the market. Inspiral could be any price. I wouldn't back it. I'm just not interested. I'm not entirely sure this horse is overly in love with racing anymore. And it seems a little bit late in the day to be going and trying this sort of 10 furlong trip again. And she got away with it at Santa Anita. I'm not sure she's getting away with it at Ascot. But the problem is, if you don't like the head of the market, then you're scratching around trying to find angles. I thought, well, there's two French lads in here. Horizon Door's got Super Mickey Barcelona on, but Horizon Door is becoming a very frustrating horse, and he doesn't win enough for me. Think he'll probably be running on, having found too many too good. I mean, Alpha Layla just doesn't interest me at all. Blue Rose Sen is kind of half interesting, but I should follow Blue Rose Sen because the Pre-Dispohan form is so strong. But I'm not entirely sold that this is the right trip for her. And I'm not entirely sold that she doesn't really want some proper dig in the ground. So I've kind of gone round in circles with this and decided in the end, I'm just going to back White Birch. The form to me seems obvious. And maybe sometimes it is bloody obvious. It's smacking you in the face. You should just back the horse. He beat August Rodin 3 lengths at the Curragh. I don't really find any reason why that would be reversed if they both run their race. And I think White Birch is just a genuine top-class horse. Some people say, he definitely needs cutting the ground. Well, I don't think the ground's going to be rattling quick by Wednesday anyway. And I just think he's a good horse. He's solid. And I think I'd kick myself if White Birch wins and I've backed August Rodin, because the form book tells me I should back White Birch. So that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I get the logic. I really do. He is a 2-1 shot with Geoff Banks Bet. They go 7-2 in Spiral, 7-1 Horizon Door, 12-1 Alifa. I think it's between the top two. You're either with Augusta Rodin or you're with White Birch. I'm starting to wonder, are they just intentionally trying to make it difficult for Kieran Schumacher? Like, do they want him to fail? Because what are you doing putting her in this race? And I will hold my hands up and admit that I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. I'll be the first one to go, wow, well done, if they get it right. I'd have a worry about the stable form, for one thing. 3 wins from 35 runners in the last 2 weeks. They're not tearing it up. She's one of the stable stars, and that's because she's still in training. You'd almost wonder, was she kept in training because they don't have anything in the 2-year-old division from last year for the classic division? I don't know. But that's a weak Queen Anne. Like, surely that's the race you go for. I get it. You've got audience, but come on. He was a fluke winner of the Lockage. Don't get it really with her. So I think she's an easy pass. So then it's just between these two. And White Birch was devastatingly impressive the other day. But it's Aiden O'Brien at Royal Ascot. And I just think Auguste Rodin is better with the benefit of a run. Maybe I didn't fancy him at all in Dubai. If that was the Breeders' Cup, we're having a different conversation. Dubai is not the main target for Coolmore. It's early in the season. It's too early in the season for them, really. Breeders' Cup is when they're at their absolute best. So I don't mind him being beaten there. I do mind him being beaten in the Tattersalls Gold Cup because he was left for dead by White Birch. I just don't believe that was actually his running, George. And I think he will now show what he's capable of. This is it. This is the last chance saloon for Auguste Rodin. And we're coming to a cutoff point. I wouldn't want to be taking any shorter than the price he is now, the 15-8 with Geoff Banks Bet. But I am keeping the faith that on good ground, he will maintain his 100% record over 10 furlongs and win the Prince of Wales Stakes. Are you with me or are you with Adam? Or are you going on a massive solo Maverick run?
No, I think this race is all about the ground. It's not a race I'll be betting on until the day. I said before, I was on the review show with Auguste Rodin, especially with Aiden O'Brien's horses, I ignore anything that happens in Dubai, and I treat their first run back in this country as their first run of the season, because don't know. They might have been roughed off for a couple of weeks. You just don't know. And look, it's not for everyone. Like it's might sound quite dismissive to just ignore Dubai form, but that's just how I do it. 'Cause it's so different. And rightly or wrongly, that's how I view races. Auguste Rodin's 4 from 6 on ground that's good or faster, 2 from 4 on good. I think he'll come on for that reappearance. He was 3 lengths behind White Birch, and it was on good to yielding, so it was marginally on the soft side. White Birch, however, is 4 out of 5 on ground, worse than soft, 0 from 2 on good. And he was having his 3rd run this season when he beat Auguste Rodin, who was just coming back from Meydan.
Yeah,
he was beaten
that's
twice.
a great point.
Yeah. He was beaten twice comfortably by Auguste Rodin last season. In their previous encounters, but they were both over 1.4 mile, a trip at which White Birch is 0 from 3 at. So you got to address this race its own thing, and just I think if it's good or better, Auguste Rodin wins it, and if it's anything worse than good, White Birch may just have the measure of him. But I think it have to be good to soft all over. I think if it's good in the going description, I think Auguste Rodin's good enough to still sort of manage it. But Astra and Spiral, it's the same question. It's ground. Like she's got 2 Group 1 wins to her name on good to soft, but she also has 5 wins on good to firm, 2 Group 1s and a Group 2, and 1 Group 1 win on firm. So she's 3 from 7 on good or worse, 6 from 7 on quicker than good. The ground's got to be vital to her chance, like Adam sort of alluded to. She has won over mile 2, but that was on firm ground in Santa Anita. That doesn't prove that she stays the trip on good English ground. Like if you're ever going to stay a mile 2, it's going to be on quick ground around there. So I'm just not sure. And like I said, I worry with her. She's a tricky ride. She's obviously a difficult horse to know. Kieran Schumacher's only had 1 go on her. I think it's going to take him a while to get the hang of her. And he's a very good jockey. That's not taking anything away from him. I just think she's a tricky customer, and she would have to be a long way clear of these 2 for me to trust that it's not going to matter. I think for her to win against horses like this, it's going to take a jockey that really knows her, and I'm not sure he's got that wealth of experience on her just yet. So I'm going to be on the day. If good's in the going description, I'm going to be going Auguste Rodin. If it's good soft all over or worse, I'll be going White Birch.
There's just too many negatives about Inspiral to be backing her at the price she is. She's an easy pass. So it's just about which of the 2 are you with? Are you with White Birch? Are you with Auguste Rodin? It's Auguste Rodin for me. It's White Birch for Adam. George, Auguste Rodin?
Looking at the weather forecast, I'd say probably Auguste Rodin. Yeah.
If we get the good to firm ground that it's telling us now in the Racing Post, let's fucking go, basically. Deadpool 3 coming to it.
The problem with that tactic, though, is if the ground goes either way, though both the horses are going to be short. If it gets softer, the horse is going to be White Birch is going to be a shorter price.
George, if there's a torrential downpour, I'm going to burst into tears.
Yeah.
Like there's a docket with City of Troy going on to 7-1 Auguste Rodin. I will be in tears if that's what happens here. But we shall see. Hopefully the sun will keep on shining and all will be well. To Thursday, and the feature race is the Gold Cup, the oldest race at Ascot. And Kyprios is now odds on, the 5-4 on favourite with Geoff Banks Bet. Vauban, 6-1 shot. Gregory, 6-1 Royal Ascot hero last year. Trawlerman, who beat Kyprios on Champions Day under an inspired Frankie Dettori ride. Was it the ride? Was it the horse? We shall see. 8-1 Coltrane, 12-1 shot. And, well, if the mare wins, then Mr. Washburn is going to be going absolutely bananas. Just hit the mute button on ITV, hit the mute button on Sky, or else turn it up if you really love that stuff. It's one or the other. I love it, but he will be screaming and roaring, and it should be a lot of fun. Question is, though, Adam Mills, is Kyprios still the same racehorse that he was 2 years ago when he dominated the staying division? Because if he is, surely he wins.
Oh, if he is, he wins this doing handstands. This is not a vintage renewal of the Gold Cup by any means. But is he? I'm really not sure he is. I don't think I'll be wanting to get stuck in a 4 to 5. I know they were prep runs and they were over inadequate trips, but his 2 runs this season, he's got a Racing Post rating of 109 both times. I don't want to take 4 to 5 about a horse that ran an RPI of 109 in a Group 1. I just don't. I'd rather take him on each way. And if he comes back to full fitness and he's back to his peak, then fair enough. I can live with that. The one I guess the one I'm against is Vauban. I mean, I love Vauban, but I'm not sure he really wants this trip. He's got a lot of class, he's got a lot of speed. He's a 1 mile, 4 furlong winner. I just don't know. I know he shaped all right at York, but that was a smaller field. I'm just not convinced that he really desperately is crying out to go over this marathon trip. At no point have I ever thought Vauban will be a stayers hurdle contender one day. So why would I think he stays 2 mile 4 on the flat? And whilst if this race was run at a crawl and it developed into a sprint, then Vauban would have a right chance. But every other jockey is riding a boat. So there's no way on earth that all of these jockeys are going to just allow this pace to crawl round for the first mile and a half. And for that reason, I'd be against him. I've come down on taking the view that the Gosdens hold the key to this race. They've got 3 entries at the moment. They're all jocked up. I'm not convinced Sweet William is good enough to win at this level, so I can rule him out. But Trawlerman, I think, yes, it was a very good Frankie ride. I'm sure ITV will wheel that out next week. But actually, Trawlerman's a really good horse. And he's backed that up because he got beat 3.5 lengths by Tower of London in Dubai. But that was a really good run. You know, we can say what we like about the way Kieran Schumacher rode him that day. But, you know, I still think Trawlerman ran all right in Dubai. I think he's a fairly solid horse. I'm fairly confident he'll get the trip. But the one who stands out a mile to me is Gregory. Gregory is one of those unfortunate flat horses who they can't go far enough. They just can't go far enough. If there was a 3.5 mile race, he'd be odds on because he just looks to me like he stays forever, but there just isn't a turn of foot. And he won the Queen's Vase by being well positioned last year. The race at York really didn't suit him, and it was run on decent ground in a quick time, and he just got outpaced, but he kept on. 2 mile 4 here is really going to suit him. James Doyle will know what to do. I think Gregory is absolutely nailed on to be in the first 3 because I think he'll far outstay a lot of these. The horse I wrote down next to him was Naef Road, who is the kind of horse that Gregory reminds me of. Naef Road wasn't good enough to win a Gold Cup, primarily because he bumped into Stradivarius. But he was the type of horse who could run well in this race because he gets so little opportunity to race over this extreme trip. This is going to suit Gregory. I thought if I can get anything 5 to 1 or bigger where I'm going to get my money back if he bumps into an on-form Kyprios, that's fair enough because I just could not find 3 horses that would outstay him.
Well, that's bizarre because I asked Aiden O'Brien yesterday, is there a chance Kyprios will stay in training if he wins this race and try and go for 3 in a row, maybe even try and go do what Yates did, win 4? And he said, yes, absolutely. And I took that as a major positive for Kyprios, that if you're willing to say that, then you must be very hopeful that the horse is going to go and win. But we're talking about a 5 to 4 on favourite in a Group 1 at Royal Ascot. I love the horse. I can't back him at that price. I hope he wins. I really do. That is a picture of Yates that my lovely mother got me a few years ago. She got Aiden O'Brien and Johnny Murtagh to sign it, and it's him winning his 4th Gold Cup. I love this race. I'm a big fan of Kyprios, but I'm also a big fan of money, and I don't want to throw it away in an odds-on shot. So I hope he wins. But I think Gregory's a cracking bet here. And Geoff Banks Bet are going 6 to 1. I think that's way too big. Way too big. I can't see him out of the frame. I really can't. He might not be good enough to beat Kyprios, but he's surely good enough to be second at least. So he's the scumbag each way play in this race for me, and I'm delighted that Adam's with him. Now, if George comes along for the ride as well, then we're just going to have to go and do some business while the show is recording. George, who's going to win the Gold Cup?
I was just thinking, when was the last time there wasn't a Johnston horse in the Ascot Gold Cup? There's shocking absence, really, isn't it?
Jeez, there's a good point.
Yeah. I was just thinking, was it a couple of horses you mentioned there from Gold Cups gone by? And I went, there's no Johnson horse in there. There's usually at least 2 or 3. He's obviously doing things very differently to his old man. But
Wheel out Subjectivist, get him back.
I just to add a bit more context to what Adam was saying about Kyprios. He performed to an RPR of 120 or above on 5 consecutive occasions before he missed a year. Since he's come back, his 4 runs since, he's only reached 120 once, and it wasn't good enough to beat Trawlerman. That was his best performance since he's come back. So it's worth bearing in mind that even his best since his injury wasn't good enough to beat Trawlerman at Ascot, admittedly over a slightly different trip. But I think at 4 to 5, that's enough to take him on just purely on that basis. And I'll be going with Trawlerman. He's a 6-year-old, but he's shown steady improvement since the introduction of a hood, excluding the 2 poor runs in the Middle East. But again, what I've just said about Middle East form, I tend to throw in the bin. So excluding those runs, he's improved 21 pounds since the introduction of the hood, and he's won 5 from 7. And bar his seasonal debut, he's shown an improved RPR on every single start. But that, again, his seasonal debut, A, was in Maidan, and B, he's a 6-year-old stayer. He's entitled to need his first run back. On that occasion, he was tenderly handled to the extent the jockey was cautioned to ride more vigorously in future. And I imagine how strongly he stayed on late was one of the main reasons for the inquiry taking place, which gives you a bit of hope that actually this trip may bring about some improvement. So he's the one I'll be going with. I would worry a little bit about Gregory. He's only a 4-year-old, could be open to more improvement, certainly in comparison to the others here. And he's stayed on strongly. I think his last 2-3 goes at mile 6, excluding his last run of the season, where he's probably over the top. I think it was at the Great Voltigeur. He stayed on very well in late. He'd be one I'd worry about, but he's a bit short for me. I think Trawlerman's just the wrong price. I think he's beaten the 4 to 5 favourite before over a shorter trip, and I don't see why he wouldn't stay this trip. So I'd have to be with him.
Okay, so it's Gosden horses all round, but Trawlerman for George Gorman and Gregory for Adam Mills and myself in the Gold Cup. I think we're all hoping that Kyprios can run a big race. Well, I'm certainly hoping he can run a big race. The 2 boys are like, no Gold Cup for Kyprios this year. All about Gregory or Trawlerman. That's our tip for the Gold Cup. We'll move on to the Friday. And the 2 Group 1s we want to talk about are the Commonwealth Cup, 2 Group 1s of the day, and the Coronation Stakes, beginning with the Commonwealth Cup, where Van Dijk is the 7-2 favourite. One of the leading 2-year-olds last year, but pretty underwhelming on his comeback run. The horse who beat him that day, in Sheeran, very impressively, has been supplemented and is 9-2. El Bodden, a 6-1 shot. Elite Status, horse I like for this, 7-1 shot for the Carl Burke team. He was very fancy to win the Norfolk Stakes last year. Came a cropper against Valiant Force, but still ran well. Bacuna Forte, 8-1, and a couple of others in here as well at big prices like Starlust, a 16-1 shot. Adam, who do you like in a confusing Commonwealth Cup? Because it really, I guess, hinges on Van Dijk if he's able to bounce back to the level of performance he was showing last season as an explosive 2-year-old. But do you trust him to bounce back?
He may well bounce back. I'm not sure I'd want to take that kind of price about him in a race that looks wide open to me. I really struggle with this race. I really find this a hard race to get a handle of because there's no superstar standout, and you're kind of scratching around and thinking, well, do we take the horses who are kind of coming up? Do we take those dropping back from a mile? I'm just going to have 2 swings. I mean, I'm not sure what the plan is with Porta Fortuna. She's obviously got the Coronation entry as well.
I think she goes Coronation.
Yeah, she's run a top speed figure of 119, gets a fillies allowance, and she's 4 from 5 at sprint trips. I think she should be in this race, but that's not my business. And it looks like the Coronation is more likely. In the unlikely event she turned up in this, I'd back her. But I just, when I was going through this and I watched a few of the replays, I thought, I don't know what I'm going to really come to. In the end, I'm going to take a swing here on a horse of Archie Watson's called Evade, who's 33s or so. The switch from Andre Faber to Archie Watson seems to have done the business, but he just found so much improvement at Epsom. It was absolutely massive run. Although he only beat Native American by half a length, they were 9 lengths clear of the rest, and he was slowly away. If they turned up here, I just think some people might see that as tilted at windmills. I'd be of the opinion They think they've got a really classy sprinter on their hands. He shouldn't be that kind of price. It is a struggle, and it wouldn't surprise me if Van Dijk just bounces back to that 2-year-old form, and if he does, then he'll destroy this lot. But I don't really want to be taking this kind of price in a race I think's wide open. So as Porta Fortuna probably won't run, it will be a small each way on Evade for me.
Okay, Evade is 33-1 with Geoff Banks Bet right now. geoffbanks.bet, 33-1. Fill your boots if you like the sound of that. George Gorman, what about you for the Commonwealth?
Nothing quite as exciting as that, but I landed on Van Dijk to reverse form with Inisherin. I thought Inisherin very impressive down in Trip in the Sandy Lane. Remains rated £6 inferior to Van Dijk. Van Dijk was on his seasonal debut. Obviously, Inisherin had the run in the Guineas. Full-length margin defeats a lot to reverse, but Van Dijk was very keen early. Just looked too fresh to me. And despite that, he did well, actually. He closed the gap substantially on the winner before getting tired late on. I saw enough that day to not only think that Van Dijk can turn it around here, I think I saw enough to see that he's trained on, that he was in, he's come back to a 3-year-old. You always worry with speedy 2-year-olds what they'll do. And he made stylish headway at one point in that race before he just got tired. I'd be with him on that. I did half want to talk myself into elite status, but he got beat so far by Van Dijk last year. I find it hard to believe he's improved that much. One at bigger price I would have a slight interest in would be Starlust. Quite whether I think the drop to 5 furlongs was probably helpful in his win last time. Maybe 6 furlongs wouldn't be his ideal trip, but he hasn't got a lot to find with some of the horses around him in the betting. I think he's probably better than the 16-1 shot, but I'm talking like place only for maybe 4 places if you can get it like that. That'd be the extent of my interest in him. But Van Dijk for the win for me.
Yeah, I found this, like the two lads, I found this an impossible race. And the horse that I had come down on was Elite Status. I don't know if I can take 7-1 about a horse who's got an official rating of 102 compared to Van Dijk's 119. He might very well improve. He may very well, in fact. And I interviewed Carl Burke the day of Royal Ascot, or else it was the day before Royal Ascot last year, when he was getting him ready for the Norfolk Stakes. And he was super bullish and very excited about what this horse was going to go on to do. Ran a big race at the Royal Meeting. He was a well-backed favourite too, behind Valiant Force, and then came good in a Group 3 in Deauville in his next start, and then was just left for dead by Van Dijk twice when he clearly didn't run his race. Back with a comeback win against Relief Rally. I was talking to Archie Brooks yesterday, and I was of the opinion then, yeah, that proves he actually does have the minerals to go and win this race. I've become a little bit gun shy since. I'm not so sure. I'm going to hold Matt Tough and finalize who I like for this race ahead of the coverage on TalkSport 2 on the Friday of Royal Ascot. But for now, I'm going to go with the two boys and defer to them, which means we're to the fillies and the Coronation Stakes. Again, good to firm ground as things stand. Opera singer, an outstanding 2-year-old last year, is the 9-4 favourite with Geoff Banks Bet. Should she be that shorter price when she has to reverse form with the Irish 1,000 Guineas winner Fallen Angel, who's a 7-2 shot? The 1,000 Guineas winner, El Malka, for Roger Varian, who seems to always have a winner at Royal Ascot, 11-2. Ramatuelle, who Oisin Murphy will take over on board on. That's a massive positive. 6-1. Porta Fortuna, as things stand, this is the race she's going to go for. An 8-1 shot, and he won a Group 1 on Oisin Murphy last year. Devoted Queen, 12-1 shot. Buttons, Aiden O'Brien told us yesterday, has had a setback and is out of Ascot. Adam Mills, who are you with amongst the fillies?
Oh, I'm really struggling with this race as well. I want to take on Opera Singer. I just want to take her on. And, I think she'll definitely come on for that run. She may well reverse the form with Fallen Angel, but I'm not convinced on the strength of that Irish 1,000 Guineas form. I don't think it was a great renewal. El Malka did well to win at Newmarket, but I think we can all agree that Connections must have handed a considerable wad of cash to Aurelien Lemaitre and said, well done, son. You threw that away by kicking for home the minute you saw the grandstands appear on the horizon. I do feel for him. It is
What was
hard
he doing, mate?
to get him jocked off for that. It's just, but I'm still not really convinced Ramatuelle genuinely wants the mile. And I think she's just got that speed for sprinting. And I'm just not really. Maybe Oisin will prove me wrong and get her settled, but it wouldn't really interest me. I do like Porta Fortuna, but again, I think she's in the wrong race. Should be in the Commonwealth Cup. So I'm going to have another each way swing on this. Is that if Charlie Appleby runs Devoted Queen, that'll do for me. 3 from 3, really nicely improving filly. I was really impressed with the way that she won at York. I just thought she just looked like a horse who's just going places and I was on a steep upward curve. The form of that race, although it was only a listed race, the third came out and finished second in a listed race at Goodwood. Probably should have won if it got a better ride. I just really like this filly. I don't really see why she's 12-1. Plenty of form. She's a half sister to One Ruler. Loads to like about her. She could find further improvement. And I think there are holes in those at the top of the market. So I was looking for something at a double figure price.
Funnily enough, I like a Godolphin filly as well, but I preferred Romantic Style. And I don't know what they're doing because they've got 3 here. The Oaks runner-up, Romantic Style and Devoted Queen. I like Devoted Queen as well, but I thought Romantic Style ran a blinder in the French 1,000 guineas from a draw that she really couldn't win from. And she had no business getting as close as she did. Thought that was a huge run, and back to Royal Ascot would be much fairer for her and give her a much better chance of being able to go and strut her stuff. Whichever of the Godolphin fillies lines up would be very much of interest. Opera Singer wins this race. You can't overstate how valuable Royal Ascot is to Coolmore. Chris Cook did a piece for The Guardian years ago, back the first time Aiden O'Brien really took Royal Ascot by storm and won every single race. Aiden O'Brien compiles a dossier for the lads every single year, and it ranks each horse's chance for Royal Ascot. And part of the reason for this is the global stage. Everybody's watching. So if you can get your horse to win at Royal Ascot, the whole world takes notice of it. Whether that's Age of Kings winning the Jersey Stakes and then selling that horse off for an absolute fortune to go and race for somebody else in another country, whether it's your 2-year-old proving for a first season sire that this sire is the one to be with, and so that more mares will be booked for that horse, or it's your filly getting valuable black type, or your colt proving how good he is and how he's going to be the superstar stallion going forward. Royal Ascot is vital to Coolmore's success, and Opera Singer, being a daughter of Justify, will be fully primed and ready to really showcase what she can do for the benefit of her dad, because he is the next big stallion as far as Coolmore are concerned. They don't have Frankel. They don't really have the heir apparent to a Galileo unless something emerges in the next couple of years, but they've got Justify, and I'm pretty confident this horse will be ready to go, and she will showcase how good she is. I'm very, very bullish that she's going to go and win. George, who are you with?
I see the case for Opera Singer. I'd like to have seen. I'd just like to have seen more on seasonal debut. I take the point that she can improve, but at the prices, I'd like to have seen her perform to the level required to win this. I'm not sure she has.
Did you not just hear my big epic rant about how Royal Ascot's vital to Coolmore and she'll be ready to run for the race of her life, man?
Well, so will all of them. It's Royal Ascot.
It was their first run of this season. These Aiden O'Brien horses, they all desperately need their first run.
I take the point, but 5-2, I'd have liked to have seen it. And
yeah, that's fair. The price is...
So I spent a good amount of time yesterday and this afternoon with the cork board with the red yarn out, trying to work this one out. And it was... I came down on it has to be between the front 3 from the Guineas, and they've all got their advantages. You look at El Malca, yes, you could say wasn't the best horse in the Guineas, but on a third lifetime run to win a Guineas, even if she should have been second, it's a hell of an effort. Then you've got to take into account she had a run under her belt, Porta Fortuna didn't. And you've got to take into account the impact on a horse potentially that winning a Guineas on your third career start might have. It wasn't all that long ago. But looking at the others, Porta Fortuna was one of the first the only one of the first three who was making her seasonal debut that day. If coming on from that, she could reverse the placings, particularly, like you said, if running in the Guineas on the third career start leaves a mark on Emalka. She's two from two on good to firm and beaten half a length in the Breeders' Cup on firm. So that's worth taking into account from a ground point of view. Ramatuelle, on the other hand, maybe didn't get the best ride. Her highest mark that she reached last year in RPRs was 112 on her final start. On just her second start of this year, she's matched that. So she's already running it the best she did last year on only a second start this year, which I think is a sign of further improvement to come. And arguably, she should have outrun that mark. If the daughter of Justify can carry on her progression there, and Justifies do tend to carry on improving, she'll probably still be improving at 4 and 5. She can make her presence known, and softer ground might just swing it in her favour. Like, she's been beaten less than a length on heavy and very soft, and has a win on soft and a win on good soft. I'm afraid to say, much like Prince of Wales, I'm going to have to wait until the day and make a judgment based on ground. If we get the likely good to firm ground, I'm probably going to go with Porta Fortuna, as well on the basis that was a seasonal debut. Although she had more experience than the other two horses as a 2-year-old, she could argue that stood in her favour. But if Donica trains anything like his father, she might not have been fully wound up that day, and she still finished second in the Guineas. So you've got to take that into account. So that's probably where I'll be going, unless there's loads of rain. I keep hearing other French experts who I've asked about this, I've asked this afternoon. They're all very keen on Ramatuelle, and I would worry about her if it started to rain. So,
obviously, been asking the wrong French experts, George.
Yeah, well, the second you started saying that, I was like, I've got to sack this lot, haven't I? I won't say who it is. Listeners will know who it is. But yeah, that's how I look at it.
Well, Oisin Murphy was in the winners' enclosure in this race 3 years ago. He may very well be in the winners' enclosure again. And there is going to be a certain irony if a Justify beats a Justify in this race. If Ramatuelle has a little bit too much for Opera Singer, but Opera Singer for me, it's going to be a fascinating race. I'm looking forward to seeing how it pans out. The final race we're going to talk about in depth, at least, is the Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee Stakes, named in honour of the late Queen. Kinross is favourite for this race. No Frankie Dettori. Oh, well. Millstream, 6-1. Shartash, I think, is a very interesting runner at 8-1 shot. Mitbahi, 10s, and was, as we mentioned earlier on, Believing is going to be going for the double, a 14-1 shot. Our old friend Art Power, who we put up on this show on Champions Day at 40-1, and he decided that was the day he would finally go and break his Group 1 duck. Thank you very much, Art Power. He's back again, and Geoff Banks currently goes 14-1. You can find out all those prices at geoffbanks.bet. Adam Mills, is this as confusing as the 5 furlong King Charles III?
Well, this is even worse because you don't know if anything's how the track's going to play out. This is over a week away for us as we're recording. You don't know what the draw is. You don't know what the field is. This is a horrible race, hideous race. But I still really like one. Actually, it's probably one of our strongest fancies of the week. It's a horrible race. They all take each in turn to beat each other. This is like those handicaps they run at Dundalk in the winter where it's whose turn is it this week. But I think Shartash is potentially a real improver in here. I know Wafnan Racing obviously have this Chelsea Football Club approach of just we'll buy everything and eventually we'll win a race. But I think this is one of their better buys. Really,
yeah, I agree.
I mean, you can read what you like into the race at Thirsk, but that was obviously a good spot by the trainer to get it going. But I was quite impressed by what happened at Haydock. I mean, really, it's one thing to take on Pogo in front, but it's another to not only outlast him, but to maintain your position and not get collared by the closers. They are 2.5 lengths in front of Witch Hunter. Good time, lots to like. He's got a July Cup entry, an improving 4-year-old. I just think he might be the one who's going to improve. And I think we can safely say, but now we know what Kinross is. There's not likely to be improvement coming from the 7-year-old. We've seen the likes of Mitbai plenty of times. Should have been a ring. Will probably run here, but, nice horse, but bumps into plenty. God knows with Art Power. Just throw the balls up in the air and see what mood he's in. But what I would say is Art Power has a really good record in Ireland, and I don't think he ran that well at the Curragh. I thought he ran.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think he ran brilliantly. That would be a sign to me that not. I won't say he won't win another one, because if he got around in those conditions in October again, you'd think he'd have a chance. And then the rest, you're sort of guessing as to whether they're really good enough at this level, and most of them prove not to be. But I just thought Shartash might be that horse who's in the Group 1 at the right time, on an upward curve against horses who aren't. And around 8-1 looked pretty fair to me.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Pogo. He's one of my favorite horses in training, and I was amazed Shartash was able to take him on for the lead and outlast him, because that's just not like Pogo. Pogo is what Pogo is, and he's not an improving horse, but he's a specialist at that trip of 7 furlongs, and when he's out in front, he's real dangerous. Wasn't he involved in a good clash with Audience last year, who's gone on to win the lock-in since? Like, he's a proper racehorse. So I love that. I thought it was a huge performance from Shartash. I'm also reminded of the fact that it's not that long ago that he was winning the Railway Stakes for Johnny Murtagh, and Johnny Murtagh instantly after the race was saying, "This is my Guineas horse." And it just didn't quite pan out for him there. But he held him in very, very high regard. And this is a good piece of business, because whatever the well-spec Glasgow Limited team bought him for, you can be absolutely certain they got considerably more from Watan. And hopefully Watan will be rewarded with a big win at Royal Ascot. I'm with them as well. George, what about you?
This is one that comes with a bit of a caveat again, and it's going to sound ridiculous after you two have just spoken. But if there's rain, I'd be with Art Power. He's been beat the last twice on good ground, but you could say he didn't run that well the last day. But he's beaten a length by Nick Barhey and had regional in front of him. He's rated 100, whatever it was. It's 118 or something. But I thought at 7 years of age, these sprinters, you don't tend to work them all that much, and like, he's more than entitled to need a couple of runs to come to form. And 7 of his 9 career victories have come on ground slower than good. Both those runs have been on good ground, and he did show improvement from the first one to the second one. I think he's the horse that's been there and done it. He's beat Kinross before. Any rain would make him a cracking each way bet, because he had a lot of these behind him over course and distance in October, including the favourite. And he likes to track his course and distance winner. I just think any hint of a drop of rain midweek, I'd be all over him. If you get 20-1 each way on him, I'd be all over it. If it comes up quick, I'd probably be with Shartash, but there's nothing I can say about him that hasn't already been said. But I'd be praying for rain, because I think, he's 16-1 now, Art Power. Someone was listening. But I'd fancy him. I really would on the day. Like,
do you know who the time form top rated horse is?
No.
Art Power. He's also RPR top rated, and yet he's 12-1, 14-1 with Geoff Banks Bet as we record. Only £4 behind is Shartash. So look, I'm with Shartash, and as I said, I put up Art Power on Champions Day with Paul Jacobs when he was on the show as well. First one to message me was Paul Jacobs, actually going, how? So I would not be in any way dismissive, but I would want a bit of softer ground for him. If you get it, he'd be very, very interesting. Who else is interesting, though? Who else is tickling your fancy for Royal Ascot 2024? George Gorman, you've got a horse that you were involved with. The only reason this horse is the success that he is because of your equine brilliance. But who else are you interested in?
We'll start with him.
And tell us about that horse.
Yeah, it's the favourite for the Copper Horse Handicap, Bellocchio, who formerly with David Minutier, now with Willie Mullins. I broke him in, looking at his age, it must have been 5 years ago now. It's shocking how time goes. This is my favourite horse I've ever broken in. He oozed class from day one. And nothing you ever did with him was a hardship. Like, you'd be doing things that have all the other yearlings like sweating and like completely out of breath, and he never turned a hair. Like, the horse's engine, his quality was evident from, he was not, obviously not even 2 yet. He was a yearling. his size and scope. He looked all over a group horse to me. He won a listed race at Toulouse on his second ever start. Obviously, given how I'm talking about now, I backed him on his first few starts. He won his first two. He then won that listed race at Kempton a little way down the line. Look, he's had his injury problems, and I think he was hard to train. And with all the will in the world, like David Manouzier is a fantastic trainer. Coomlands is an excellent stable. Like, it's a difficult place to train a horse with bad legs. Like, there's the actual gallop. There's a bit of it that suddenly goes quite steep, and you're sort of half slipping down it as you're going up it. I just think seeing Willie Mullins' deep sand gallops, we might finally get the best out of this horse now. Because I know for a fact when David was training him, he was never really able to get him fully fit without him going wrong. Whereas Willie Mullins with a deep sand gallop, you're going to be able to get this horse fit without putting those legs under too much pressure. He's run once for them already. That was over hurdles. He won a maiden hurdle at Punchestown in May by 9 lengths. He's won off 98 before. I think he goes here off 100. Like, it's no slight on David Manouzier to say Willie Mullins might improve a horse, and he'd only have to improve £2 to be winning off a mark like this. I really fancy him. He had a go here in the Prince of Wales, I think, once under Silvestre de Souza, and he got, with all the will in the world, he got a dreadful ride, and I actually fancied him that day. I would really fancy this horse over that trip. And obviously for personal reasons, and I just genuinely think he's a superstar that's never really had his day. So that'd be him. My other two, very quickly, because I have to bring it back round to Star Wars once every episode, me and Emmet. I really fancy Dark Trooper in the Wokingham, which Star Wars fans will know as an initially a type of stormtrooper and then turned into a type of droid used by the evil Galactic Empire. But in this case, he's a horse who was very impressive in a conditions race at Saint Cloud last time out. After 3 disappointing runs in Qatar for New Connections, his RPR of 113 at Saint Cloud represents a career best for him. And I just think a mark of 102 probably massively underrates him there. He's towards the top of the betting, no secret, but I think he'll be much shorter on the day. And the other one is in the Kensington Palace. Is far too shy for George Margson. He's beaten a length and a half in the race last year off the same mark, which he then won off 2 starts later, before being beaten half a length into third over a listed event over course and distance on final start. George Margson never leaves Ascot without a horse being placed at a massive price. And this must have been the plan since last year. She steadily worked her way back down to 88, suddenly started running a bit better the last twice, but not so much better that she's gone up in the ratings. I think this race is the plan. I think it's about 20-1. And with connections, it's every chance that if something else is backed, you could get bigger on the day. Like these horses are never backed, and he never leaves Royal Ascot, particularly with the extra places, like with the 3rds, 4ths, 5ths. There's always something in the money of George Margson's. It'd be worth a second look at his other runner, Ropey Guest, who's in a few of the handicaps. Probably be high enough in the weights, but has been second at the meeting before. Worth seeing where that horse turns up if you were interested. But I think this is the one that looks like it's really the plan. So I would be with Far Too Shy in Kensington Palace.
Okay, liking that. Anything else that interests you, Adam Mills?
No, not yet. No, too early. I'll look at the Group 1s, but I've got to wait. With Ascot, I've got to know the draw. Can't be having anything in the middle. It's got to be high or low. So we'll wait for that, I think.
Yeah, I'm very much with you on that one. We're going to be talking to Tim Carroll, one of the best in the business, on tomorrow's show, and we'll get some insight from him as well. He may very well have a handicapper or two, but draw is crucial. And until we have that evidence, I wouldn't even be looking at the fields at the moment. So I mentioned Aiden O'Brien's success at the meeting earlier on. I think he is absolutely the place you have to be looking at for a number of these big races. And I was quite keen to talk to him about his middle distance 3-year-olds because there were some who wanted to write them off only a couple of weeks ago on the basis of very limited evidence. But then He started winning Derby trials, and now he's gone on to win the Derby as well. I think he will win the King Edward II, King Edward VII, and the Queen's Vase. I think he'll win the Queen's Vase with Highbury. Sounds like he's going to be the chosen one for this. He's also pretty solid in the market now as well. He's into 9-4 with Geoff Banks Bet. Aiden described them all as there's not much between them in terms of, like, you could run a horse that you're running in the Queen's Vase could easily end up in the King Edward VII Stakes, so it doesn't really matter in terms of trip. But I think Highbury is a very, very exciting horse. He was eye-catching on debut at Cork and then devastating at Leopardstown and looked like a proper group performer that day. I expect him to go and win the Queen's Vase. The King Edward VII Stakes is just a little bit trickier in terms of working out, well, who's actually going to line up. But I would imagine it's going to be Chief Little Rock, and I would be shocked if Ryan isn't on board. It's possible that he goes for something else and they let Wayne keep the ride. I doubt it, though. It's a rare one when Ryan picks the wrong horse, particularly on Irish Guineas weekend, and he did that day for whatever reason. I think both of those horses will go and win. Hardwick Stakes is fascinating. I'd be all over Rebels Romance if he was going. Rebels Romance at 7-1 for a Hardwick Stakes is absolute madness, which means he's almost certainly in America and not running. So I can't imagine for a second he's actually coming to Royal Ascot if there's so many bookmakers, including Geoff, who are prepared to go 7-1, which then just leaves you with Continuous, who should outclass them and should go and win. Ran a big race at Royal Ascot last year. I wouldn't worry about him now at this time of year. Aiden's horses should be able to win first time out. But the 2-3-year-olds, and very simply, Aiden's running a number of juveniles that are all going to go super close. But Whistle Jacket's away and gone. Like, unless that, why is the man's name? Unless that Wesley Ward horse. I've got COVID for the second time this year, and I've got the brain fog. Could you tell? What a nonsense. Oh yeah, by the way, vaccine safe and effective. Jesus Christ. Anyway, Whistle Jacket just looks different class. He's highest rated on time form by quite some way. Highest rated on RPOs by quite some way. He will take the world of beating. Full Brothers Little Big Bear. He's going for the Norfolk as opposed to going for the Windsor Castle Stakes. He's going to take all the beating. Fairy Godmother, I think, will take all the beating in the Albany Stakes as well. I'd be very, very confident that she'll come out on top there. And the way they were talking about Camille Pizarro, doesn't seem to matter that horse was beaten the last day. Expect to see a much bolder showing. So if Aiden O'Brien has a good Royal Ascot, I'll have a good Royal Ascot. And there's some of the ones that you should be putting on your short list. Who is your most confident bet for Royal Ascot 2024? George Gorman.
Oh, God. Come back to me in a second.
Adam Mills.
I will go with Henry Longfellow in the St. James's Palace.
Bastard, that's what I was going to say. George.
I'm going to go Resilient.
He puts up Henry Longfellow.
Yeah.
You pause for your best bet, and then you go, yeah, Resilient.
I can go a different race if you want, but that's my honest to God answer. Away from that, I'd say Trawler Man.
Opera singer, away and gone. That's it. Thank you so much for listening and watching this episode of the Final Furlong Podcast. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Really appreciate the insight from both Adam and from George. Obviously, it goes without saying, gamble responsibly and all that malarkey. BeGambleAware.org. 18 plus only. BeGambleAware.org. You already know that. It's about having fun. It's about having the crack. I'm really excited for Royal Ascot. You can hear all of it on TalkSport 2. The pesky Euros is getting in the way of us doing every race like we did last year, but we'll have a lot of fun with it. Lizzie Kelly, Lee McKenzie, Tony McCormick, Rupert Bell, the whole team were there for the whole week, and hopefully you can come along and join us and enjoy it. From Adam Mills, George Gorman, and from me, Emmet Kennedy. Enjoy Royal Ascot 2024. We've got some more content coming your way. Let us know in the comments who your best bet is. If you're still with us, if you're still riding it with us at 1 hour, 14 minutes and 29 seconds, who is your best bet for Royal Ascot 2024? We'd love to know, and also we'll give you a shout out on the show next week if you shoot the lights out and outperform all of us Adam, George, and myself, look after yourself and each other. God bless. Boys, that was a really good show. Thoroughly enjoyed